wanted to get into this just amazing report. This study was done by Supermajority / Perry Undem. It's a remarkable survey. And what they did was they asked questions about the role of women in society. And they asked people whether they considered themselves pro-choice or pro-life, right? Whether they're in favor of a woman having a right to have an abortion or whether they're opposed to a woman having the right to have a safe legal abortion. And they asked questions like, should women hold political office? Well, 82% of people who were pro-choice said, yeah, women should hold political office. But 34% of so-called pro-lifers said, yes, women should hold elective office. So, what is that, 66%? If I'm doing my math right, of so-called pro-life people think women should not hold political office. Now, what does that tell you about their views on women? Do women make better political leaders? Excuse me, do men make better political leaders than women? More than half said yes, men are better than women at being political leaders. Should we have equal numbers of men and women in positions of power in the United States? 80% of pro-choicers said yes. Fewer than half of pro-lifers said yes. Anti-abortion, this is Jill Filipovic wrote a great summary of this in today's Guardian, theguardian.com. And she notes, anti-abortion voters don't like the Me Too movement. They don't think the lack of women in positions of power impacts women's equality. They don't think access to birth control impacts women's equality. They don't think the way women are treated in society is an important issue in the 2020 election. They don't believe sexism is a problem. They're hostile to women's rights. Now, you'll recall, after the 2016 election, everybody was trying to figure out what happened. And, it's got to be that white people voted for Donald Trump because they're economically insecure. And then the social scientists chimed in. They got, in and actually did some research and found out it's got nothing to do with economic insecurity. In fact, most of the white people who voted for Donald Trump weren't the really poor ones. They were the more well-off ones. So what was it all about? Well, it was all about basically race. Donald Trump based his campaign on racism, and the folks who are essentially racists said, yeah, I'm voting for Donald Trump. So then the question became, well, what about the others? Well, maybe they're economically insecure. They're not all racists. It turns out that the rest of them are misogynists. They think that women should basically live their lives under the thumb of men. The anti-abortion movement was really, fueled. I mean, it was only 150 years ago that the Catholic Church decided abortion was wrong. Right? They were fine with abortion up until 150 years ago, and at least early stage. Pre-quickening, which is when you can feel a baby kicking. They were fine up to that point, but 150 years ago they took this position, and then of course the evangelicals picked this up in the 1980s with Reagan. But the Catholic Church is arguably the most misogynistic institution in the world. Vatican City has 700 some odd citizens. All of them are men. No woman holds a position of power, of real power in the Catholic Church. No woman is allowed to. And it's, the Catholic Church has been driving this anti-abortion train. Women, according to 3/4 of the people in this survey who were anti-abortion, women are too easily offended. More than 70% of pro-lifers in the survey agree that women interpret innocent remarks or acts as being sexist. In other words, they're just a touch hysterical, and perhaps you can't trust these women. And as I mentioned earlier, 82%, this is from Jill's piece in the Guardian, while 82% of pro-choice respondents said that the country would be better off with more women in political office, just 34% of abortion opponents agreed. So it turns out it's the misogyny.